if you debate Vaush, you're gonna come out looking like you're downplaying it. But Polly's trans, so I can push her around. Is that the thought process? He is streaming right now. Oh my god, chat, are you thirsty for blood? We got some vampires in chat. It is that time of the year. It is the most wonderful time of the year, by the way. Morale indeed, right? Want to debate me, bestie? I know, that's right. It was a bestie debate. That's what you're gonna have with me. You're gonna deal with my bullshit. Do you really want to debate me? Do you really want to debate me, Lonerbox? Loner soy.
Okay.
Oh, I love it.
But a collective response of like everyone blocking Vaush, everyone blocking any of these assholes to like cut them out, like make them unable to engage, period.
Praxis.
Yeah, I was definitely speaking from like a cis white point of privilege there. Yeah, because that, I can just mute people.
It's cis white privilege to mute people rather than blow. Oh my.
I mean, it is true that like Vaush doesn't seem to respect blocks, like, right? We did see an incident, we did watch an incident where there was a black trans guy that had blocked Vaush, and Vaush circumvented his ban in order to basically send harassment his way. So yeah, it is kind of, there is an element of privilege, Lonerbox. There is an element of privilege.
God. Oh my God.
That I want to make sure we can discuss this, just how genocidal Turks are. Because when we say Turks are genocidal, and I know we've been using that word a lot to describe what's happening.
So something important to understand that I don't know if Lonerbox understands this or not. I don't really know what Lonerbox understands about trans issues. But that TERFs at this point need to be considered part of the right wing. Some people get confused by the fact that they're trans exclusionary radical feminists. Radical feminists in the 70s were considered on the left, right? There was just like a strain of radical feminists that, like, when third wave came in and said, we need to be inclusive. We want to include trans women, like when we're, in our feminism, right? That's third wave feminism. The TERFs, not fans, did not like it, stuck with no, we're gonna keep treating trans women like shit, right? And as a result, they have gravitated more and more to the right wing. Recently in the TERFs in the UK, you've seen more and more of them basically making common cause with conservatives, reactionaries, and outright fascists, right? Saying that abortion is not an issue, not a litmus test anymore. Not a line, like in some cases, you'll find TERFs who are anti-abortion rights, right? So they're basically right wing now, is what we're talking about, right? It's another issue of how it started, where it's at now.
In various parts of the world.
Yeah.
I'm talking right now specifically about the UK and the US, but it's not exclusive to these two parts of the world, of what people are doing to, like, transphobes are doing to trans people, including trans children. And I know we've been calling that genocide, and it's true, but it doesn't change the fact that this is absolutely
definitely compatible with the with any working definition of genocide that's ever been used. Fuck me. The thing is, like, I would love any of these people who are saying that there's a fucking trans genocide happening. I would ask them, like, do you think that the state of trans rights in the UK or the US is even going to go back to like 2005 levels or 2010 levels? Because everyone knows the answer to that, and it's no. We're not even going to go back to those times.
Okay, so what Lonerbox seems to be saying is, like, yes, there is a movement against trans people. Yes, there is more hate against trans people, right? Yes, there are rights that are being taken away, but it's just a minor inconvenience. It's not genocide. You're being histrionic. You're overreacting, right? Just chill, right? Everything's gonna be fine. And all I gotta say is, Lonerbox, easy for you to say, right? What is it gonna take for a guy like this to get off his ass? What is it gonna take for a guy like this to get serious about this? I don't really care about your definitions. I care about your, how aware, how awake you are of the danger that this shit poses to us, right? And, like, I don't see it. Like, this is scary. This is really scary. Like, right? And this is, it's going to blow some people's minds, right? Like, you know, people that are Lonerbox's fans, like, when I say this is scary, when I say I look at Lonerbox's reaction and I'm scared, right? I'm scared of the silence. Because in times like this, silence is violence, right? I'm scared of how disconnected he is from my reality. I'm scared of wondering what it's going to take to get his attention, to change his mind, to make him think that trans people are worth defending. Because, like, what I get from him right now is he thinks that this is all a minor inconvenience and we just need to sit tight. Just sit tight. Everything's going to be fine.
The only thing you would say to them is like, you're the T-slur, when that was the default word for them. We're not even going back to that. We're getting pushed back against like the fact that more kids are getting access to care now. That's what's happening. And that's a big fucking problem, all right? That's an attempt.
And he seems to think it's like limited to that. He seems to think there's not a fundamental underlying transphobia even in people that we call allies, right? He seems to think that these seeds of exclusion and elimination aren't being planted in very fertile soil. He is so wrong. He is so out of touch on this, right? And like, I gotta say to an ally like this, if you're gonna be this out of touch, please don't talk about our issues. We don't need your help. If you're not gonna acquaint yourself with what is actually going on, then please step out of this lane, because your help is, you're not helping.
To like erasure and all that shit, but it's not a fucking genocide. Like, stop just like, oh god damn it, fuck.
And when there is
no, you're not getting closer to genocide. Stop. You're not getting closer to genocide. Stop. You're not doing it. Okay, not happening. It's not okay. You're getting close to some people getting denied healthcare, and that's really fucking shit. And then you're gonna respond by being like, hey, you're telling me it's not that bad. No, look at any genocide and just be like, okay, let's just check some boxes here. And you guys want me to debate Vaush about it? Just like, you understand, there's a reason I don't want to, right? And the reason is that there's no way I come out of that discussion looking good, because it just sounds like I'm downplaying. And I'm not downplaying. I don't think people should downplay what's happening to trans people in America. These bills are awful, but you're calling it
if you debate Vaush, you're gonna come out looking like you're downplaying it. But Polly's trans, so I can push her around. Is that the thought process? Vaush doesn't have, Vaush doesn't have skin in the game on this issue. Polly does. Let me see if I can, trigger an emotional response and actually look good and make her look histrionic and alarmist. Whereas with Vaush, then I'm gonna look like I'm downplaying. Okay, I think you're overestimating Vaush's debate skills and or underestimating Polly's debate skills, right? And we're gonna see how much Lonerbox underestimated Poly people. I don't think Lonerbox knew who he was dealing with, right? I don't think Lonerbox had any idea. He thinks he's gonna get off easier from Poly. He thinks he can come out cleaner from a debate on this with Poly than he could with Vaush.
genocide. Does this really mean that the state of trans rights until like 2014 or whatever was genocidal? That there's been a genocide against trans people happening for the last 6,000 years, or since the dawn of the dawn of humanity, we've been genociding trans people? Because that's basically, we're not even
Does he not know what we deal with? Is he that disconnected?
going back to that, but that's what we're calling it. Why does that matter? Because I want to see if your definition holds up. Do you think that like the last 5-10 years have just been us coming out?
And I gotta say, this is such a debate bro brain take. This is such a debate bro brain take, right? To like be, this is such a nerd. This is nerd shit, right? He's worried about the technicalities of a definition of a state. Like, look, I get what he's thinking, right? He thinks of genocide as being all the way at one end of a spectrum. And he's getting hung up on that definition. And he's like, oh, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're there. Do you want to be there? Like, but it doesn't matter for him, right? If people like him let it go, if people like him underplay this, underemphasize this, and then we do get to a place where the bodies are stacked up high enough for him to actually consider that a genocide, then he's just like, well, who could have known? Who could? Oh gosh, well that's a real shame. Like we'll have to learn from that historical. But like for him, it's like there's no skin in the game, right? It's easy for, like I said, easy for you to say, Lonerbox.
Trans genocide. I think we should maybe. I think what we could do instead is just look up a few genocides and look at why they were deemed genocides, why people pushed back on it, maybe, or why it crossed the threshold and what evidence was required to call it a genocide. I think we should maybe look at that one day. Wish you were as passionate about Lav's transphobic takes as you are about folks being a bit hyperbolic about terrible shit happening. Just saying. All right, Ziggy. Video about British transphobia. Video about British transphobia. Video about British transphobia. Where is my there is no trans genocide video? Are you confusing passion with just like, I don't know, performative like frustration or whatever? The reason I'm a bit more calm with people like Lav is
let's compare this to other great genocides of history and see if it stacks up.
Because she does exactly what I expect of her. You are aesthetics brained by saying that. Fuck you. I will always devote more fucking energy in my life to attacking transphobia, to attacking my own side when they call that a trans genocide, okay? That's not changing. Yeah, I expect it from Lavloon. I don't expect people like, oh God. I think we're at the beginning stages of a potential.
Okay, so Lavloon, you're talking about a streamer that I don't really know. I know a little bit about Lavloon's backstory. I don't know much more. I've heard that Lavloon's takes are kind of a mixed bag. I didn't know that she was that bad on, like, is she worse than Lonerbox on trans issues? I actually don't know about this.
Genocide, okay, that's a bit more acceptable because you can look at the stages of genocide and be like stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of dehumanization, of otherization, of mistreatment, like legal mistreatment, all that. Yeah, you can see all of that.
The thing is, we haven't exactly been humanized. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going from a state where trans rights are respected, acknowledged, where trans people are given dignity, to, you know, a state where we're dehumanized. Like we've
is like every ethnic minority in every country in the fucking world is at some stage of genocide. Okay, the problem is like that's not what makes it a genocide. Okay, that just means that we have like systemic discrimination and like unequal rights. That's not genocide though. You know what's really funny is that historians, I want to show you the difference here, right? Historians will actually have this debate as well. I know I can't have this discussion because your brains are going to melt. You're going to short
Lav has some turfy-like takes.
Circuit, and your brains will just leak out of your ears. Would you describe Nazi rhetoric before 1941 as genocidal? Because believe it or not, genocidal rhetoric, first of all, is not genocide, but also, like, maybe a better question is, was it a genocide until 1941? Like, before 1941, was what was happening a genocide? Was there enough there to say you were convicted of genocide? You are guilty of genocide? The answer to that is no. You can look at the rhetoric as well. There are lots of quotes. I can read you a few because I've got a list here. There's like, but the question is like whether or not there was a display of genocidal intent. So from like Hitler, so post 1941, there's plenty. It's all over the place. Like there's all the letters, there's all the fucking communications, the orders given, and obviously the camps themselves, the fact that it happened, that's all there. But when we're talking about like Hitler in 1919, there's like, I think the quote that he gave there was about Germany will be Germany, whatever, when the Jews were deprived of all.
What is he trying to say here? Please crunch the like button. Yes, crunch the like button if you haven't already. That really helps me, YouTube, and anything you can do in the way of comments also helps me a lot. Much appreciated. And if you want to, the membership is there. That will get you access to videos before anybody else gets to see them. Another way you can get those videos ahead of time is by signing up for my Patreon. Yeah, even if you don't have the money to sub or join on Patreon or membership or anything like that, you can still help me a lot just by crunching that like button. I got so distracted. Anyway, let's see. There we go.
Rights systematically and legally, and then removed altogether. There's an ambiguity about the word removal. In Mein Kampf, he said something similar as well. We will carry on the struggle until the last Jew is removed. That's 1919 as well. Kristallnacht, the rationale they gave there for opening up the first camps was actually, well, this is what they said anyway, very debatable, what they said was that they were doing it to protect Jews from violence against like locals, and did rather than obviously prosecute the people who did it. Yeah, and jobs. Yeah, jobs are the other thing. There was like an SS journal that said that the Jews will be will face fire and sword. Again, it's a like. But when you look at all these events, all these negotiations that happened before 1941, there's like the Schacht-Rubli negotiations, which is where Hitler. He, in 1938 to 39, he agreed to release like over 100,000 German Jews and to give them part of their property and to give them like just enough to give them a fraction of the wealth that was seized from them so they could establish themselves in a new country to join families who had already fled. There were the Madagascar plans, which were about, that was the first time they used the term final solution. Only the first time it was used was territorial final solution. Then there is actually the Himmler Memorandum in 1940 where the idea of mass murder was rejected. Then there's 1940 again, where Hitler orders to expel Jews to France, and he implies they go to Madagascar afterwards. There's the plan in 1941, early 1941, where they actually say what they want to do is to deport Jews to Allied nations that were fighting Germany, because they thought the Allied nations would be so disgusted by the Jews who arrived there that they would understand the Nazis' point. That was actually something they thought as well. But then they realize eventually that they've got like 5 million Jewish prisoners in fucking Poland, and there's way too many of them to deport like whilst fighting a war. So 1941, there's a big meeting held in mid-March, and it's mostly assumed there that Hitler orally gave the order to start killing people. And then they go for it, yeah. But the point is that people can have genocidal rhetoric for like 10 plus years. And we're talking about a much more extreme case than what's happening to trans people in the US, okay? Like, fuck. That's also why, actually, since we got the Vaush fans in here, the question of whether or not Professor Flowers was genocidal. The answer, if you want to be...
Yeah, they've got Vaush fans in there. I guess that's who is, pressing Lonerbox to debate Vaush.
As accurate as possible, the answer would be no, because she tried to use examples like Kenya where white people left, but like kind of voluntarily and peacefully, but she assumed that that it happened that white people left Kenya because there was some kind of like policy or intent to get the white people out of Kenya, which is, I don't think that's what they were doing. I think they were just trying to achieve equality, and the result of equality was that a lot of white people left, not all of them. So this whole idea, but the fact that she would say that was that, like, colonized people have a right to live free of their colonizers. Well, the question is, what happens when the colonizers don't want to leave? Should they have the right to like deport them? I think there was one stage in that debate where she said that she wouldn't mind, I think. And then, but that's still not genocide, though. What she was advocating for was something that could result in a genocide. Or that the logical conclusion of it would be a genocide, but that's not like making her genocidal. Unless we're just doing like internet speech or whatever. Does genocide require death? Well, the answer is destroy, so yeah, I think it does. As far as I know.
Okay, Lonerbox. I get that you're a nerd. I get that you're obsessed with definitions, right? You waiting till I'm dead is a little bit inconvenient for me. So since you seem to care about inconvenience so much, maybe think about that. I don't know. This is terrible. This is actually scary. Like, it's the fact that he is not in any way aware of what he's dealing with. That his whole standard here seems to be like, like the bodies need to stack up at least this high before I'm gonna give a fuck. That's a little too late to do anything, right? But I guess if you got no skin in the game, it doesn't matter to you.
Like I guess the Armenian genocide, which is like you're going into exile and you're gonna walk from here to here, but the distance was so far that like they couldn't fucking make it, and then they died. What about cultural? Well, cultural genocide's not a legal term. You can say it's a term, and it's roughly defined, which is the kind of term they use for the Uyghurs.
Why are you concerned with legality when people are in danger? Why do you seem okay with like a little bit of harm as long as it doesn't rise to a certain level? Don't you understand that if you want to stop this sort of thing from happening, if you want to start the kind of, you know, stop the kind of like, you know, total extermination event that you're talking about from happening, you have to stop genocide like lower down the scale. You talked about the stages before. You talked about the whole idea of dehumanization, the whole process. You know, you could talk about the stochastic pyramid. You're aware of this stuff. Why aren't you more concerned about stopping it before we're even talking about that? Like, why do you got to give me this shit of like, well, we're not there yet, when there is a state where I am not breathing? That's up, Lonerbox. That's up.
But legally, yeah, I don't think the UN does. The UN is cultural genocide like internationally illegal? I didn't know it was. I think it was devised as a subcategory, but I don't know if it actually stuck. I think it's like an academic concept, but I don't think it's legal. I don't think you can convict someone of cultural genocide. What were you saying, Partial Pressure? Any of the following acts committed with intent. Okay, so I've seen this, right? Yeah, this is, let's just get the genocide definition. Let's just go with this short one. Genocide means any...
You know, like, definitions don't protect people like me. Laws don't protect people like me. And intransigence like this sure as fuck doesn't protect people like me. What the fuck, Lonerbox? You call yourself an ally?
Of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part is a big thing as well. You don't have to try and kill the entire fucking group. Destroy, I looked at a paper on this once. It was really big, but I think like it has to be killing, doesn't it? Under this definition, national, ethnic, racial, religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm. This is the kind
of guy that if you're in a dangerous situation, like, I don't know, like your school's on fire or something like that, he's going to be like, well, actually, the definition of combustion requires that we have a temperature of at least, you know, like, I don't fucking care, dude. Get the fire, put the fire out. You know, get people to safety. Don't fucking worry about, what the hell? Does he not, he doesn't know what time it is. In a very large sense, he does not seem to see what time it is.
Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births from within the group, forcibly transferring children. I think there also has to be like a level of like state force as well. But this whole thing about some people have the intent and some lawmakers want it to be the case that people like trans kids can't get access to healthcare.
I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. At this point, Lonerbox is on the Destiny side of things. That is the sphere that he circulates in the Destiny sphere. And their whole thing is that they love to call lefties histrionic. They love to say that we're being alarmist, that we're ratcheting up the rhetoric, that, you know, and this is how this all happened. I mean, I guess this all started from Vaush's take about community defense and how that straight up got him banned off of, or at least for a week, right? You know, it got him struck so that he's effectively banned off of YouTube for a week, right? Just for saying something really obvious. Yeah, and then the Destiny people saying, well, I don't know, maybe Vaush is stoking violence, right? I think the claim here is that that the situation for trans people, like okay. The best steelman I can make of this argument is that they're saying that the situation for trans people is not as dire as the situation of Vaush and other people talking about, you know, community defense. Like that they're more worried that there's going to be a loss of life, that there's going to be harm done through the quote unquote ratcheting up of the rhetoric, which is really the rhetoric is about self-defense at this point, right? Than there is in letting, you know, this transphobia run its course on trans people. And that's the Steelman version, right? That is me strengthening his viewpoint as much as I can, trying to assume the best about what he's saying, right?
Genocidal, right? Are there any, like, so one example you could give, I think the worst thing that could happen is conversion therapy is banned in half of the states, and it doesn't happen that often in other ones. I think if there was some mass movement to to take kids away to conversion therapy places to yeah, you could call that like a crime against humanity and whatever the fuck else, but that might, I don't know if that would fall under cultural genocide, even though it would be quite similar to the activity. Like, it probably would be. Okay, just because, but again, you guys are confusing so much. Holy shit. There are people who think there should be Matt Walsh thinks that no one should be allowed to be trans, right? No one should be allowed gender affirming care, right? But that doesn't mean there's a genocide happening or on its way. That just means one person.
There are conservatives right now going to school board meetings and calling for harm to be done, for unaliving to be done, not just to trans people, but to LGBT people, right? And Matt Walsh is talking about, basically, banning HRT, banning any kind of medical care for trans people. Matt Walsh is just talking about ruining our lives, right? So Lonerbox is okay with Matt Walsh temporarily ruining our lives. That might be a little bit inconvenient, but just sit tight, because Lonerbox has got you.
Has some dog shit fucking views on it, and that's not a genocide though. You can find if you want to say you can find intent and all that, then you go for it, but still, let's see. Youth access to gender affirming care. I want to find out, are there any states where gender affirming care is illegal, completely? Are there any states where you just can't be trans, where you can't transition? I guess I don't know what your issue is, what we should call it. You can just call it trans erasure. That's because that's what it is.
No, it's not. Trans erasure is pretending that trans people don't exist. Trans erasure is ignoring trans people. That's what erasure means, right? There doesn't have to be intent. Yeah, exactly. Texas, Florida, right? It's
so
Tennessee, right?
Arkansas, I'll find that all trans affirmative care, not just for kids. Because I looked at this map of anti-trans laws. Arkansas cannot. It's just for kids, and they couldn't enforce it. This is right here. You've just demonstrated completely for me. I'll read it first, actually, and then I'll get mad. All right. Arkansas cannot enforce ban on gender affirming care for trans kids. Federal Appeals Court. This is August this year.
It's like him saying something like this, right? You are falling off the side of a mountain, right? But you had a rope attached to you, and the rope didn't break, right? That rope being the Federal Appeals Court, right? So because the rope didn't break, you should be fine just sitting there halfway off the mountain. We're not going to worry about pulling you up yet. We're not going to worry about doing anything for you. You just hang tight. literally fucking hang tight there, right? When you're hanging by a thread. That's what he doesn't realize, that this Federal Appeals Court is a thread. Courts are not reliable. Do you know how many judges were put in place by Donald Trump? Do you know how many other, Republican presidents have, do you know what the judiciary looks like right now? It's an incredibly conservative judiciary. Also, we shouldn't have to rely on the judiciary. States shouldn't be doing this shit, right? In the past, when states have tried stuff even bathroom bills and stuff, which, I would say, I don't know, I don't want to compare it. They're all bad, right? But there's been efforts to combat states' bathroom bills that have worked, right? When people pay attention, when people care, and when people do something about it, you can stop this. When people act like Lonerbox here, you're kind of fucked.
Why? Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Erasure? Yeah, I know. Trans erasure is a really bad thing. Yeah. That's why I think it's a better thing to call it than fucking genocidal. Jesus. I think
that's not erasure. What the fuck?
It's a more accurate thing to call it. And it doesn't, it doesn't. That's
not erasure. Not letting people live their lives is a little bit more than erasure. Jesus Christ.
It's not like saying it's not alarming.
He doesn't understand the term, does he?
You should be very alarmed by trans erasure. Yeah, of course you should. But as soon as you stretch this definition, you're like, how many groups have been fucking victims of genocide and shit? God. You see the problem here, though? You see what happens here? This leapfrogging. of I can be more dramatic than you, regardless of whether or not this is like, was America...
Look, if there's any leapfrogging going on here, it's through this Takemeister economy of trying to be more callous than the other people in the Destiny network to get the attention, right? So what is the purpose of this, right? Why is he doing this? I think it's a Takemeister. I think that he's saying something that he knows is going to be shocking. He knows it's going to be provocative. He knows it's going to get attention. Just like we were saying last night when we were watching the Fox News documentary, the creation of Fox News. Roger Ailes said that, you know, at the end of the night, who gets the attention? The person that played the beautiful bassoon solo, or the person that jumped into the orchestra pit? It's the person who jumped into the orchestra pit. This is Lonerbox jumping into the orchestra pit for attention.
In slavery, a genocide? The slave trade itself? No. I think there were events within the slave trade that were probably genocidal. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah, good point. Buffy says, like, by erasure sucks a lot, but it doesn't prevent me from getting medical care or like existing in public spaces. Yeah, erasure is different. Like, erasure is being it's somebody not considering you. That's what erasure is. Like, it's somebody kind of, you know, glossing over your existence, which sucks too. And can lead to bad things. But yeah, this is on a whole nother order. I know, right? What? Oh my God, where's he going with the slave trade thing? This is getting worse and worse.
What happened to the Native Americans? That was definitely genocide because they were trying to wipe them out. Yeah, like there was intent and they were acting on it. So is the state removing? Which state is removing children from their parents to fucking convert them? Are parents doing that themselves? Like sending kids away? Because again, that's not like. So you're sticking to the internationally recognized definition, basically. So please, like. You can. I just urge you to.
So, like, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. I don't know. I don't think he knows, you know, what's going on. And what he's proposing here is like something like, you know, wait, are there pray away the trans camps or something like that? Well, that's not genocide. That's not, you know, like, right? That's not a big deal. Just sit tight. Okay. Like we got to go through this, you know, we got to let Matt Walsh have his freedom of speech. Don't worry though. The wheel of progress always moves forward and never moves backward. Oh my God. Do you realize how scary Lonerbox it is to be a marginalized person when there's people like you saying shit like this? Like, this makes us feel like you just don't care, or you're just not going to notice. You're too slow to the pickup. You're too cautious, right? You're saying that people are jumping the gun, people are leapfrogging over each other. I think it's the opposite. I think you're fucking intransigent here.
I think if you went door knocking about trying to stop legislation like this, or like advocating for it, if you had an opportunity.
Okay, so I'm hearing from chat. Zara says Texas will remove trans children from trans affirming parents. Did he really? Did he really deny that the? Oh my God, he's denying that the transatlantic slave trade was genocide.
You said genocide. I think you lose like most people. I don't know, everyone wants to call everything a fucking genocide. I don't know. Climate activists will call like oil production genocidal. That's like, okay. People call systemic racism genocidal. A federal appeal court on Thursday said Arkansas cannot enforce its ban.
You just brought another issue that people are downplaying. You just brought up like oil production is genocidal. This is genocidal. That is everything. I guess everything's genocidal. No. Like, I mean, these are all big concerns, right? I don't know. Like, the problem is that you're the one with the disconnect here. Right? You're saying that people are making, like, you just implied that people are making too much of a big deal about climate change. Do you really believe that, Lonerbox? Will you defend that viewpoint? Like, did those words just slip out of your ass somehow? Like, is that not intentional? Are you speaking without any intention or consciousness? What's going on here? I feel like I'm just hearing, like, you know, thoughts inside your head. Do you really believe that? Do you really fucking believe that? That's wild. That's wild. No, dude. There's no problem with, you know. Yeah, Yeah, and with climate change, you know, you're talking about a process that, yeah, it takes a long time. So I guess that's why you and so many other people, most of them conservative, most of them reactionary, don't think that climate change don't seem to think that it's as big of a deal as it is. And also the first people to suffer from it are going to be people, you know, in the global south, right? Are going to be people in more equatorial countries, right? Yeah, it does affect somebody else first, but like, holy shit, like this is something that is going to cause like massive loss of life. So yeah, I think that oil production is on that same order. Jesus Christ. People are already being displaced by the rising oceans.
Children receiving gender-affirming medical care. A 3-judge panel of the 8th U.S. District Court of Appeals affirmed a ruling temporary. See,
this is the problem with privilege. And I always say that privilege in and of itself does not make you a bad person, right? Some people get the privilege discourse wrong, especially privileged people. They think that they are being criticized. They are being called bad people for having privilege. No. You're not a bad person for having privilege. You are a bad person for letting your privilege insulate you to the point where you're so complacent that you'll allow all this stuff to happen like it's not a big deal because it's not a big deal to you. That's the problem with privilege. When you don't check it, when you're not aware of it. That's when privilege causes problems, right?
Stopping the state enforcing the 2021 law. A trial is scheduled in October before the same judge on whether to permanently block the law. Arkansas was the first state to enact such a ban, which prohibits doctors from providing gender-confirming hormone treatment, puberty blockers, or...
Polly, we were just watching the preamble to your debate. So apparently, Lonerbox, let's see, he watched Kira Chats and DJ Muel. He talked to Chat. Chat wanted him to debate Vaush. He decided better of it because he thought that Vosh might make him look bad, and he thought he could. I'm guessing he thought he could bully you instead of getting bullied by Vosh. I think he might have made a miscalculation. I think there's some chance that he didn't know who he was getting. He didn't know who he was dealing with in poly people, right? Yeah, so we're watching. Yeah, I don't know if you watched any of this, but this is the lead up to Lonerbox's debate with you.
Surgery to anyone under 18 years old, or from referring them to other providers for the treatment. This is not, okay, again, this is bad, not genocidal, okay? Because the minor's sex at birth determines whether or not the minor can receive certain types of medical care under the law. Act 626 discriminates on the basis of sex, okay? The American Civil Liberties Union challenged the law on behalf of 4 transgender youth and their families, as well as 2 doctors who provide gender-confirming treatments. The 8th Circuit was
that's interesting. So he did take his VOD down. Yeah, we got a hold of this, and luckily I got some brave soul to edit it down for me to hit the important stuff and not get hung up in all the other.
Clear that the state's ban on care does not advocate on any important governmental interest, and the state's defense of the law is lacking in legal or evidentiary support. Okay? The state has no business categorically singling out this care for prohibition. Arkansas argued that the restriction is within the state's authority to regulate medical practices. The Republican Attorney General Leslie Rutledge plans to ask the 8th.
Okay, let me try that again. Let me try. I think I fail SO'd that. I think I gave it your Twitter name or something. Anyway.
Full 8th Circuit Court of Appeals to review Thursday's decision for the spokesperson. Rutledge was extremely disappointed in today's dangerously wrong decision by the 3-judge panel.
So listen, okay, so here's something that I'll say. Vaush recently downplayed the utility of doing research, right? Vaush basically said that right-wingers are so bad at debate, they're so dumb, they're so below him, that he doesn't need to do research. I think that's wrong. So appreciate you for doing research, Lonerbox, but there is a point when the need is pressing. The need is urgent. A lot of the damage has been done already. A lot of people are suffering already. When you need to pull your head out of your and actually get up and do something instead of getting dragged down into this nerd where you're like literally going in Wikipedia and be like, does this actually meet the definition of genocide? Well, listen, the bodies need to be piled at least this high for me to consider it a genocide. So call me when the bodies are this. Like, no, you do something now. You do something now, right?
Medical groups, including the American Medical Association, oppose the ban and have said that the care the care is safe if properly administered. The US Justice Department has also opposed the ban as unconstitutional. Yeah, there's no state where you can't get gender-affirming care at all. I'm pretty sure of that. Tennessee ban was enacted last year on transgender treatments for youth, which is limited to providing gender-confirming hormone treatment to prepubescent minors.
Okay, wait. Now there is Florida did block any sort of gender-affirming care that goes through with Medicaid, with Medicaid, right? Am I wrong about that? But I guess he's acting like, since if you have the privilege of being able to afford private care, you know what I mean? If you're not on the state healthcare plan, then you'll be fine, right? And so it's like, you were talking about erasure earlier, Lonerbox. That is, you forgetting that some people are getting their trans affirming healthcare through the state. That's, well, I don't even want to call that erasure, because I want to make a distinction here. Erasure is not thinking about somebody's existence. Erasure is glossing over a group like they don't exist, and it's bad, and it causes problems, and it is a problem in and of itself. But he's comparing other things to erasure that are actually impacting people right now, and I don't like that, because it gives people the thought that the harm that's being done right now isn't real. That kind of, yeah, like when you call that erasure, that's ironically enough, it's a type of, anyway, I don't want to get too bogged down by definitions, because that is nerd shit. That is what Lonerbox is struggling with right now, and there's a reason to kind of when things are urgent, you don't have time for that.
Yeah, hormones for kids, that is getting banned though, yeah. But they are trying to ban it. Brr. Okay, well, it's a good thing there are lots of activists out there trying to stop that.
And again, like his whole thing of like that well, they're trying to do X, well, they haven't done it yet, so call me when they've done it, right? It's like being dropped off a mountaintop, and you've got one little strand of your jacket that's like holding you up, and he's like, oh no, she's fine. She's fine. That her jacket's caught on the rock, and she's not falling off the cliff yet. Call me back when she's falling off the cliff. Call me back when we can't do anything for me. Yeah, thanks a lot. Jesus Christ. What is up with this guy?
Soying out over whether or not it's calling it a genocide. The weird thing is that even if trans people, let's say trans people can't get gender affirming care, like they can't get hormones and surgery. Do they stop being trans? Would like social transition just not be?
Let's say we ruin your life. Let's say we fuck everything up for you. Let's say that your life is already hard, right? Let's say you're already being treated like shit. Let's say that your life is already really hard. Let's say that you're dealing with stuff that you couldn't even comprehend, Lonerbox. Do you stop being trans? Thank you, Lonerbox. I'll know in my heart that I'm trans, and that'll be enough. Thank you, Lonerbox. I don't need HRT. I don't need, like, don't worry. It's not like there's a causal relationship between not getting access to this stuff and like, people like unaliving themselves, right? Don't worry. I'll be fine. I'll know in my heart that I'm still, what the hell? What is wrong with this guy? What is wrong with Twitch politics? Honestly.
A concept. If you beat up enough gay people, do they stop being, what the fuck's wrong with, what a strange question. No, they don't. That's what I'm saying. They don't stop being trans. Like, trans people still exist. That's not a genocide. So the
chatter was trying to say, like, that you could make the same argument that, like gay bashing doesn't stop gay people from being gay. True, right? So you're just making an argument to be complacent about harm. And you worry about, like, that Vaush is going to make it look like you're minimizing something? You don't think you're minimizing something?
Like, fuck. You can say it's bad. I'm not like, the problem is every time I make this argument, I know what you guys are doing. You're like, this is what's making it so frustrating for me.
For the
you're acting as if I'm fucking
meow meow.
You think I am less appalled than you guys are. because you've called it a genocide. That is a disgusting place to be, though, right? Like, it's like me saying that I'm going to call like fucking like systemic like Islamophobia in the UK an ongoing genocide. And you guys will say it's not because they're not being fucking rounded up, killed, or fucking like all that shit, taken into camps. And apparently...
Do you want to talk about a disgusting place to be, Lonerbox? Do you want to talk about a disgusting, complacent, lethargic, anemic place to be?
That means I care about it more than you do. By the way, I don't think insisting on calling it genocide means you care at all. I think it means you care about being as dramatic as possible. And the worst thing is...
That's right. It's just a virtue signal. You caught us. We're just virtue signaling. Lonerbox, we're LARPing. We're having a good LARP. It's all fun and games until somebody... Oh my God, I don't even want to say it. I don't even want to say it. Look, I'm trying to make jokes about this, but this actually isn't funny. This actually is not funny. Like, the stakes are very real.
If you said that there was a genocide coming, is if trans people actually get fucking like...
And the fact that he can't see that the stakes are real, it's scary. Like, this is when silence becomes violence. This is what that phrase means.
State agents coming in, bringing them into fucking facilities en masse to try and detrans them. Like, that's what needs to happen for you guys to be right.
Is it just me, or does it feel like everybody in that Destiny orbit is like auditioning to be the next Steven? Like, it's like the way that they say things, the way that the things that they get upset about, you know? Like I'm surprised we haven't seen this shit yet, right? Everybody just wants to be Steven, right? Everybody wants to be Stephen Bonnell II.
Right. At the moment,
Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bonnell II, the third.
I'm going to say we're pretty far away from that. And I'm really happy for that. And I'm really happy that most of these bills have been pushed back on. And I don't know for sure. I've only spoken to a couple of these activists who do this thing, like who get people to turn up to votes or to testify in state legislatures and all that. From my understanding, I don't think many of them are using the word genocide.
Lonerbox, have a good take. Challenge difficulty impossible. Apparently, yeah.
What do they use?
They even talk like Destiny. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They're absolutely auditioning to be like Steven's body double or something. I don't even know.
Erasure. Can genocides happen slowly over time? Oh yeah, you can build up to a genocide like for a fucking very long time. Of course that happens. But
so might it not be efficacious in that case to be a little bit proactive about something like a genocide? Because the feeling that I'm getting from you is that you've got a yardstick in your brain, right? And I don't know how high that yardstick is, but it's only after the bodies have stacked up to whatever that height is, that is when you're going to get involved. That is when you're going to say, hey, you know what? We need to do something. But that time it's too fucking late. It's too fucking late, right?
That's like doing the 30 IQ thing where you go like, here's the thing. This is the 30 IQ thing to do, okay? You look at the 10 stages of genocide and find a group
really
that's at like a few of these stages.
Like, I'm not showing
people
it,
are divided into them and
upset.
us. The main preventative measure at this early stage is to develop universalistic institutions that transcend divisions. Like, wow, like gamers are, on stage 1 of genocide. All right, symbolization when combined with hatred.
Okay, so I guess the stages of genocide are a joke then, right? If we can put gamers up there into the classification and maybe symbolization category, then I guess we can just say this is all a big joke and we can laugh about it. Says somebody with no skin in the game. Says somebody with zero skin in the game.
Be forced upon hate symbols. Like, again, this is the shit. I guess
honestly,
in Germany when it was like the Stars of David or
like, I realized that I don't stream as much as I used to, right? And this is part of the reason is that when I get on, it's shit like this that I have to deal with. And like, I mean, it's one thing to talk about issues that are hypothetical, that are conceptual, there's an ethical aspect, but it's not immediate. Like, that's easy mode, right? And that is what people that aren't marginalized in this kind of way, experience. But when you have skin in the game, it takes a toll on you. That's kind of hard to describe, right? It's kind of hard to describe.
Yeah. Discrimination in law. Yeah, that's one. But again, like when you look into the details, they're not losing like full citizenship and voting rights. And it's hard to say discrimination because the healthcare rights of trans people are like unique. So I don't know if even know if it comes under civil rights. I think a lot of anti-trans legislation has recently gotten rid of that. Like, wasn't Bill C-16 was bringing trans people under anti-discrimination laws, because before then it was actually possible for a landlord to be like, I'm not going to rent this flat out to you because you're trans.
So C-16 was in Canada. And C-16 extended the same civil rights that other groups received to trans people. And this was the bill that was that Jordan Peterson told people it was going to throw people in the gulag for getting your pronouns wrong. And it absolutely wasn't the case.
I don't like that lifestyle. Yeah. And C-16 basically like got rid of that. Is this like, does this mean again, prevent strategy? Because that disproportionately focuses on Muslims, or almost exclusively. Dehumanization? Well, I think Michael Gove said there's not enough fucking Islamophobia in the Tory party. There needs to be more. Okay. Organization? We're not quite there, are we? I don't know if we're quite there. Are there special anti-trans militias? J.K. Rowling and her little merry band of morons.
Do there need to be? Do there need to be to get your fucking attention? What the fuck, Lonerbox? What the fuck? You think there's not violence against trans people? And it's like, if it's not organized, if they don't have a fucking... I mean, like, they do have uniforms. There are groups that attack trans people, right? Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, right? There are groups that do this shit, right? They don't exclusively attack trans people, but like, do you need a special, like, you know, super straight militia in order to give a fuck about this issue? What the hell? Oh my God.
Hate groups. we got 1 billion of them in the UK. You can shoehorn a lot of systemic discrimination into like 6 of these stages if you really want to. It's really not that funny for trans people to go off, I guess. You are actually the most disgusting person I've ever spoken to in my fucking life. No,
your chatter is being completely normal. That's a normal fucking... That's the one most normal... Lonerbox chatter. That's who I don't know who said that, but whoever that was, you win. Most normal Lonerbox chatter. That's a completely normal thing to say. You're the weirdo. Lonerbox, you're the weirdo here.
Get the fuck out of here. He has a point to what? Like,
did you just ban somebody for saying something completely rational and based? They are now a poly chatter. Who was that?
Making fun of like J.K.
Rowling. We don't need to say their name.
That's me like laughing at the suffering of trans people. What? Sorry, that was stage 1 of the damn girl genocide. Oh no. Are you having fun right now? No. I don't know.
So I'm looking at this.
Every time I have this discussion, it's like every time I have this discussion, people start like smashing their keyboards about why.
No, it's wild because like, right, I knew some of the people. I don't recognize any names from before Lonerbox crossed over to the side of Lauren Southern and Samantha Banana, right? I feel like there's going to be 100% turnover, at least in the people chatting. I don't know about the people in the community. Maybe there's some people left from the old days when this guy used to pretend to be some kind of social democrat or something, some kind of lefty. Now he's completely in Destiny's orbit, and you know, he's got a completely, I mean, I don't know, like, you know, I'd expect him to have more overlap with like Chudlogic and places like that.
About all the bad things that are happening. And it's like, I think it's just a weird place to be in. So it wasn't like a retaliatory attack. It wasn't like where it would be a bit more.
He used to call himself a socialist.
Just like typical war thing.
Yeah,
like
and there was like
completely different people. Attack, like an organization like KLA launches an attack from a town, and then the Serbs like fire back some fucking shells, right? That wouldn't be a genocide. Yeah. So we've got that it's basically like unprovoked, like it's not a military threat. Then the Serbs go in there, imprison 8,000 people, gather them to a stadium, and then they just shoot them one at a time. And then bury them in mass.
Wait, they were calling you a lib? How is lib a pejorative for this crowd? The only way I could think of it is if they're like, we're centrist, lib, right? Wait, were they calling you a lib as in lib, you're too far to the left, lib? Was it like that kind of thing? Or were they like acting like you're not a real leftist? They think they're leftists. They still, oh my God. I didn't think you were allowed to identify as a leftist in the Destiny orbit. Who knew? Chudlogic rated him today. I joined at the end of Chud's stream, hoping to find out just how much I dislike Chud, and then he just ended and rated this guy. Oh my God, yeah.
Graves, and then afterwards, they were
calling Polly a fake leftist.
And they noticed that there were planes flying over, catching photographs of the grave sites. So they dug the graves up and tried to move the bodies somewhere else to try and hide them. Unfortunately, that was photographed as well for them. So yeah, they tried. So denial as well is a big thing. The fact that they tried to hide it.
I got a spoiler. If you're getting raids from Chudlogic, there's no way you're a leftist, right? Unless it's a hate raid.
So that all happened. But the way that they proved it was a genocide was
the
leftoids. To show the,
that's right. That's what he said. That's it. He's like, these leftoids. These leftoids don't understand nuance. I can't quite do it. I used to have a good Chudlogic voice. I don't think I can do it as well. I only do Demon Mama. And only on rare occasions when it's a full moon and she possesses me.
For General Christich, who was one of the generals on trial
what was that?
Had to explain why he brought machinery for digging holes.
We're not going to do Demon Mama. We're not going to do
before anyone was executed, and why he could explain, because he knew like it was impossible for him not to know they were moving there. They were huge machines. He knew they were coming there, and he couldn't explain why he was doing that, because obviously the intent was to dig graves. The other thing is General Mladic basically said. Was quoted, and this is like the nail in the coffin for his trial, was that he was quoted before the attack by saying, here we are on July 11th, 1995 in Serb Srebrenica. On the eve of yet another great Serb holiday, we give this town to the Serb people as a gift. Finally, after the rebellion against the Dahis, the time has come to take revenge on the Turks in this region. So the time has come to take revenge on the Turks. They weren't Turks. The Dahis is like a very old Serb rebellion against the fucking Ottomans. Yeah, it's just really weird. But that's why those are the things that got it classed as a genocide. Even after all the people died, they needed the machinery to prove that it was genocidal. The attempts at hiding.
Wait, so I don't understand why bringing up a situation in which genocide was not stopped and there were mass graves, like as a way to say that this isn't something that we should worry about. It's not time to raise the alarm. It's not time to talk about community defense. No, like, right. This is bizarre. This is bizarre.
It was part of it being genocidal. The quotes saying "we take revenge," that was showing it being genocidal. And the fact that Srebrenica wasn't a military threat. Like, that's how high the bar is to support the case of a genocide being committed. So
let me talk a little bit about, so we're talking about the definition of genocide according to international law, if I'm not mistaken. And I get the feeling that Lonerbox here is not exactly an expert on this. Is he on normal speed? Yes, he is. Should we turn him up? Should we boost his speed? Should we make him faster? So yeah, this is, he's talking about the international law definition. Now I want to talk about this, like how stuff like this gets codified, right? When we're talking about international law, there are some big players in deciding what is and is not international law. The United States is one of these, right? There are a lot of, there are a lot of, powerful countries that might have had an event in their history that they very much do not want to be considered a genocide, right? So these definitions, these caveats, these standards are written with this in mind. What I'm trying to say to you, chat, is that, these definitions may be a little bit overly stringent, and purposely so, in order to exclude certain events from being considered this, right? Because nobody wants to say that, you know, our country did this. Nobody wants to bite the bullet on that one, right?
Trans rights have come along so far, even since I was a teenager. Like, so far. And I really do think it's going to be a very strange timeline where that happens to trans people in America. I think the worst thing that seems to be happening right now is kids being denied care and conversion therapy bans maybe being lifted in some states where parents can drive their kids to conversion therapy, which is really fucking bad. And
oh my God,
Chad. If that was happening, like if it got to a stage where a certain state was like, for the protection of trans kids, we're going to like mandate that the state converts trans kids without parents' consent or anything, and they send like some fucking agents to the door to take a fucking kid to a conversion therapy camp or whatever, then yeah, you know, like I think all the miniature fucking Kyle Rittenhouse trans kids could come out and fucking get on it, you know? Like,
what? Did he just hypothesize a situation in which, like, wait, what do I need to roll that back? Oh my God, chat. We got like 10 minutes left. I know we don't want to get stuck on this. We want to get to the debate. That's the exciting part. But I just got to hear, what did Lonerbox actually say right there?
Yeah, you know, like, I think all the miniature fucking Kyle Rittenhouse trans kids could come out and fucking get on. Like, if it got to a stage where a certain state was like, for the protection of trans kids, we're going to like mandate that the state converts trans kids without parents' consent or anything, and they send like some fucking agents to the door to take a fucking kid to a conversion therapy camp or whatever, then yeah, you know, like,
it's hard to tell what he was saying. I thought he was like reversing the situation for a second there. I'm guessing he's not. I'm guessing he's talking about if they sent like armed agents to, you know, take trans kids to, you know, pray away the trans, you know, camps, like where they're held by force.
I think all the miniature fucking Kyle Rittenhouse trans kids could come out and fucking get on it, you know? Like, does it have to be a state to be a genocide? No. Like, individual generals can be convicted of genocide. So, yeah. It's the same thing when you look at, I think another big thing about determining whether something's genocide is when they talk about precedent, like legal precedent. So one of the things they go into there, and actually this is something that neo-Nazis use as well, is they'll talk about Great Replacement being genocidal, but that whole thing about replacement, like birth rates, that is actually part of determining genocide sometimes, like by a state, because one of the signs of genocide happening is like birth rates dropping to zero or going like, yeah. And I think that's one of the arguments they're making about the Uyghurs, is that their birth rate, since the Chinese government has moved in there, is that their birth rate is down to zero. But yeah, that's when you go,
hey, this is what I'm saying, that Kyle Rittenhouse trans kids thing, that kind of sounds like a Destiny take.
I don't know if the mass sterilization thing is proven. I think there might be some testimony on it as far as I remember, but yeah. So you don't actually need to kill people, I don't think, for it to be a genocide. But that's also, intent is like a really big thing as well. But after the fact, right? So the Holodomor is often contested as being not a genocide because, first of all, it wasn't specifically targeted at one group. There were...
like, can we like drop intent for a second? Since we're in kind of, you know, since we're in a situation where harm's already being done, and talk about impact? Can we just concentrate on impact a little bit? Like, somebody's intent or lack thereof doesn't mean shit.
There were starvations happening all over Russia and in Kazakhstan as well at the same time.
It's such a Destiny brain take. He might start talking about a saxophone. Nice one, Peachy.
So the idea that it was an intentional famine caused to like designed to kill Ukrainians, that's not really substantiated. Yeah. What might be possible?
I don't even understand. Like, I don't think he was afraid of it. I think he was saying that in the case where, like, you know, they're sending armed agents to forcibly detransition kids, that then, you know, then armed opposition might be authorized. And again, chat, remember, that is like a hard line. I gotta stay away from talking about the stuff that Vaush talked about, because that already we already know that somebody's used that to get a strike against a streamer, that being Vaush. So I'm gonna if I don't talk about that part, that's why.
And it seems likely is that once the famine was happening, it was kind of conveniently ignored as a way of getting rid of like people who were considered undesirable by the Soviet Union. That might be a thing. I think that's where there's more But calling it a genocide is actually like, it's not, there's some contention around that. And that contention has never been solved. But that doesn't take anything away from how like horrible the Holodomor was. The fact that it was completely like state policy that set it into motion. The fact that after people realized it was happening, because there were fucking like Russian soldiers forming perimeters around Ukrainian villages, not letting them.
Was it like a bad empanada stream alert? I think that was
flee. The fact that people were.
Did anybody get what is it's Bad Empanada? It's from the debate that he had with Bad Empanada, I guess. I couldn't tell what that was supposed to be. It didn't exactly sound like an own. They technically are sending armed people to detransition folks. I mean, it's the state taking away the medical care and rights. Who is enforcing that? Yeah. I mean, they don't need armed guards to do that, right? They're just like disallowing it.
Were convicted for like 10 years in jail for trying to steal a handful of grain. People were being fucking executed for stealing grain, even though they were starving. Yeah, like all this horrible shit. Yeah. Like you're saying again, forcefully starving, but the heavy lifting there is coming from the word forcefully, right? Because a man-made famine doesn't mean like a deliberate famine. So no, like that's where the claim, like that's why genocide is a high bar to cross. It's not just about the number of deaths. That's not what, it's not like you cross a certain number of deaths and that's like genocide, right? Yeah. You can say negligence.
Okay, so I was right. There's a yardstick. There's a very tall yardstick. It's more than a yard, several yards, and he's not going to consider anything real until you want an SMT, but with Final Fantasy XIV combat. Interesting. I haven't played Final Fantasy XIV.
Like opportunism with the perimeters around. Yeah. What is lower in the totem pole than genocide? Ethnic cleansing, definitely. Trying to move people from one place to another forcefully. That's ethnic cleansing. Crime against humanity, war crime, which can result with like negligence, lack of care. What else do you have? Erasure, identity erasure. Kind of what they did with gay people in the 80s was when they tried to like, Section 28 and stuff like that. That would be like an example of erasure. Banning sex education for gay kids in schools. You consider what's happening to trans people. Wait. We're definitely. I mean, that's definitely going on in schools. That's kind of like largely been accomplished. Like there's a culture of fear. There's a fear fear has been instituted on teachers, on schools by things like libs of TikTok, right? That's stochastic violence, and libs of TikTok doesn't only they do interface with like the state government of Florida, for instance, in order to pass the Don't Say Gay bill, right? That was in a lot of ways, that was Chaya Raichik's, idea. That was Chaya Raichik's work. But they don't just do that, right? If you get featured in libs of TikTok, you are on, you got a crosshair on yourself. You know what I mean? You got a bead on you, right? They basically, any violent, chud out there could target you, right? You've been, essentially they dox people, right? Against humanity too. I think crime against humanity is more to do with like war crime and like killing and stuff. Like a massacre.
The gameplay is
like
good,
a
but the
revenge
story's
massacre,
underwhelming.
especially. That could be one. But no, I'd consider what's happening to trans people in America, like in some states, like they're just like attempting erasure, basically. You even call it child abuse to a degree. Denying trans kids healthcare because you read some bullshit studies about social contagion. Yeah, that's state-sanctioned child abuse for sure. I don't know. I feel like the problem is like the internet is alternative media, and the problem with alternative media is it's all like what the mainstream are too scared to tell you. And it's like everyone just kind of leapfrogs over who can use the most dramatic language, and genocide is the most dramatic language.
So we're LARPers. That's what he's saying.
So the problem was when we had this discussion, maybe I can do it with you guys as well because I haven't got into it, or maybe you guys, it does maybe, because I think, I don't know, I can't do it now because I've already told you, like I've already given you the hint. But the idea is that when I have these discussions, I would often ask people, someone who's insisting it's a genocide, right? And I'll ask them to describe some of the anti-trans legislation, like how many states do you think are banning trans care completely? And they'll list a few, but it's like, well, actually, no state is banning it overall, as far as I know. And then how many are banning it for kids? And they'll give a big number, but it's actually a bit lower. How many of these attempts at legislation have been pushed back? And I think the problem with using the word genocide is it makes you, same thing with immigration, You ask like a xenophobe, how many, what percentage of the UK is Muslim? And they'll be like 50% or some shit, but it's actually like 4, Was it genocide when they tried to force left-handed? Well, I know you didn't say it that way, but yeah. Would that be erasure? Yeah, probably. I don't know. Well, being left-handed is an identity.
Yeah, I mean,
but
like he's kind of like just like spitballing. Like, I don't think this is really like a big deal. I don't think this has really happened in that many states. I mean, it's just like, and he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know. And you know what?
Pretty
like,
abusive.
The real way to find out is like to talk to somebody who's affected by these laws, to talk to somebody who's trans, to see what is actually happening on the ground for people with skin in the game. That's what an ally does. That's why this is not an ally.
There was a map from 2021 from The Guardian about the legislation in the US. I'd like to see where this has gone today, but when this was starting to kick off, anti-trans laws passed in 2021. This is all, I think this is mostly to do with sports, these ones. Look at even for sports, which is the one where I think most of the legislation is about sports, as far as I remember. Mostly failed, some enacted. Look at what one's restricting affirming care for trans youth. All but 2 failed, Tennessee and Arkansas. And the Arkansas one got undone. They can't enforce it. There was one. Tennessee is the worst one. They're the ones that have like 22 anti-trans bills. Isn't that wild though? Hello, Lona, you have much to learn about fascism and National Socialism. Do I? Probably. Don't we all? What do I have to learn about fascism and National Socialism? I want to know. I wonder if I could have maybe asked chat what they thought about this before that. Donation to ban pipeline. I don't know. Maybe chat could be more, maybe if there's like honesty, I guess I could ask for, but the people in chat who were saying that like there's like a risk of a trans genocide in the US, I'm going to assume you guys thought it was more than 2 states that managed to ban gender affirming care for trans youth, but I guess like only 1 fully succeeded. You think it's coming? I want to know. Okay, wait.
He doesn't get it. He doesn't get what that means. He doesn't understand the impact of what he's talking about. He's acting like banning gender affirming care. It's a minor inconvenience. If it's only in some of the states, it's not really like, right. You are like what we're really talking about is the level of alarm, like what level to be on as far as alarm. And your rhetoric saying, take it down a few notches, settle down. It's okay. It's okay. Everything's good. Listen, I am sitting here looking at the comments on my Matt Walsh video. All I did was comment, would make a video on Matt Walsh on his wild ass take on child marriage and say that this is kind of he's more extreme than you think. I am now looking at like I don't know how many comments. In the past while I was streaming, I got like 20 comments or more from rabid fucking transphobes, like being creepy, being scary to me, trying to intimidate me, trying to shut me up. I don't think you understand what we're dealing with. I don't think you know.
Right took how many decades to overturn Roe v. Wade? I mean, is banning abortion genocidal as well? Technically destroying the lives of many women. Fascists are the true inheritors of socialism. Oh God, yeah, of course.
16 new comments since I was streaming.
That's the kind of sentence you expect to come from someone who tells you have much to learn, isn't it? Fuck me. How many states would there need to pass anti-trans laws before it's deemed bad enough? I don't know why, even if like 20 states were passing anti-trans, like transitional care for kids, I don't know why the language of genocide would come into, I don't know where that would come in handy there. Because if you want to get healthcare rights, you would think about trying to pass laws in other states so that kids have like recourse to maybe try and get care somewhere else, or maybe using federal land to get away for kids to have healthcare, or pushing back against the legislation. I don't know where the genocide word comes in handy there when we're talking about solutions either. Again, like genocidal intent, you can absolutely talk about all that stuff, but lots of people like just like you can find a random cut on the street with genocidal intent. It doesn't mean there's one happening. You should ask Demon Mama about what? About the genocide thing. I don't think I plan on it. I don't have any plans to do that. I thought that discourse had passed. It just kind of reignited today because I was laughing at DJ Muel and Bad Bunny for saying it. Okay, do you see? You're doing the thing again. Justified fear of genocide is what you're saying, right? Not just justified fear. I think Tennessee is enough for big justified fear. I think that's big enough for alarmism because kids will suffer for that. Fear of genocide. I mean, I guess in let's say when the Nazis got elected, I think the big fear of genocide was when someone who wanted to remove
I've got a quote for you from that video. Somebody's saying, "Oh yes, let's listen." Like, wait, let me read this. I want to read you exactly what they said. "Ah, yes, the trans will give us a straight point of view." They want to silence me. They want to shut me up. They don't think that I have that I deserve to be able to speak on this matter that involves my survival, right? And you want to act like this is no big deal. You want to downplay this, right?
the Jews from the country that came in, and when they started trying to put in legislation to get them to fucking leave. I think that's kind of like where the genocidal fear comes from. As for America, like Republicans aren't even in power right now. How does transcultural? I don't know what it would look like for trans people. I think no, actually I do. I think what you could call
that is a fucking dipshit point of view. That is a dip. The Republicans don't have power right now. Tell that to the Supreme Court. Jesus Christ. Yeah, he is being obtuse.
Of trans people. And I think this is the only, and I'm saying like a less than 1% chance, but the only chance I think of that happening,
obtuse.
states started to sanction some kind of like forced conversion therapy for trans kids. Like they'll say there's a crisis, like a mental health crisis of trans kids, and we need to save them by finding trans kids and bring them to conversion therapy camps so that they can purge their fucking demons or get rid of the social contagion or whatever. I think that would be, I'd be like, fuck, that would be a cultural genocide, yeah. And if people wanted to take out, like we're taking up arms to standing in front of the front doors of trans kids to protect them from that behavior, I'd be like, yeah, but of course I wouldn't oppose that. It's like the only chance they've got,
what
right?
you don't understand is
okay,
so what he's just proposed is like that there's a certain level in which he thinks that Vaush's stance of community, it's time for community defense, right, would be appropriate, right? That is a point at which it would be impossible to stop the actions that they were trying to take against us. And anyone who did take up arms would be doing so in a fruitless effort. In other words, they would be forfeiting their own lives at that point. You want to wait until the point where the only people that are going to stand up for us are people that are willing to forfeit their own life? Fuck you.
This, like, even when people say, like, I think even when Vaush says,
seriously,
hello, poly people, why do I feel like I know your name? What states? The state
wait, this is how this happened? So here's Polly. You see Polly in the chat of Lonerbox. And that's how the debate happened, I guess.
Doors to drag them to conversion therapy camps. Are they doing that right now? That's pretty dark. Are you sure? But wait, are we sure about that? Are you sure?
Hey, Colasia.
It's not like the US is seeing a huge spike in transphobia and anti-Semitism. I could believe it's coming. I mean, yeah, but I was sidetracked. Even when Vaush was saying, remember when Vaush was saying that trans people should take up arms to protect themselves?
Does he listen to what he says? Good question. It almost feels like he's not. It almost feels like he is just, like, it almost feels like these are just thoughts leaking out of his brain with no intention, right? Because it's just like it just
against a genocide. I think that's actually
someone
based.
tipped you off.
I think if you're a minority group, and given the way history moves, like pretty quickly sometimes, pretty suddenly, like, yeah, people should take up arms. That's fucking cool. And they should, not only that, they don't stop there. They should learn how to use those fucking weapons as well, right? If I lived in America as someone who's like, the most I've got is like a Middle Eastern name, yeah, I'd take up arms in that country. Jesus. I just don't think you lose any sense of urgency or alarmism by calling it like trans erasure or systemic like abuse of trans people. Like all that is real and that's all happening. And the Republicans are trying to go quite far with it. But when you say that we're on the precipice of a trans genocide, I'm just like, mate, forced conversion. Okay, do you see how you've taken what I said?
But do you see calling that out now, talking about that now, talking about, like pointing this out now is the only way that we stop it we stop those bodies from reaching the level at which you will actually call this a genocide, right? Like if you get alarmed, if you start worrying about stuff when it's already gone too far, like I said, then yeah, maybe there will be people who take up arms to defend us, but with the knowledge that they're forfeiting their lives, it's impossible to stop something that's already gotten going like that, right? And it's actually really hard to, even at the point that we're at now, like I don't think he realizes that we're a lot further down the line than he thinks, right? I am dealing with people right now in my comments who do not regard me as a human being with moral value, right? And you want us to chill. You want us to hold on. You think that we're being alarmist. You think that we're LARPing.
I said state agents sending to like people being sent to people's doors and trying to fucking drag them into like conversion therapy camps. And you said they're doing that right now. And now it's, indirectly forced conversion. But it's essentially happening right now by detransitioning kids and through the reversal of civil rights of trans people in the US. Okay,
that's Polly that he's reading.
We can just fast forward to the bit where, I don't know. No, I'm sorry. I'm being too triggered. I'm judging too quickly. What's the debate tonight? I don't know. I was laughing at DJ Muel for saying that there's like a fucking, it will be too late if you, what are you talking? What are you saying?
Exactly. Polly says it will be too late if you want that to happen, dude.
What do you think I'm suggesting? I don't know at what point you came in. Do you want to talk if you're a streamer? I feel like I recognize you. I just have no idea where, so I'll just go blank slate. You know? Yeah, I can give you my Discord if you want to. There's an open offer because I have no idea where you joined or what we're talking about or what people have told you. But fuck me.
So yeah, this is where this starts. It's my Patreon. I would like to thank all of my Patreons. Ooh, they are objectively better people than either you or I. Unless they are you, in which case, ooh. They get to view the videos before you, so they've already seen this and hit like and left a comment and joined and became a member and all sorts of other cool stuff. They hit the bell for notifications. If you'd like to join them in the land of tomorrow, watching videos early and all, you can sign up for my Patreon too. The link is in the description, ooh.